Hey everyone, it's Cathy Zielske. Welcome back to my channel and the craft/dining room. Halloween is coming. And to celebrate, I have got the spookiest, but also cutest little card project ever to celebrate, the upcoming holiday. The holiday with the most. Kind of like me. It features ghosts, spooky tree, creepy crawler background. You could say it has it all, like me. Stick around, my Halloween card project is coming up next. I think we're good. So here's a look at the card project I'll be creating in today's video. And I don't know about you, but this just makes me all kinds of Halloween happy. Halloween's my jam. It just is. All right, let's take a look at the products I'll be using today. I've got this big old Creepy Crawlers red rubber cling stamp. I'm going to use that for my background. I've got this really funky Ghouls and Trees die, and I've also got some embossing ink, a little bit of clear embossing powder, some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, and 3 oxides that I'll be using. I've got a selection of fine quality cardstocks, and I'll be using, of course, a few other things as we go. So let's get started. I'll take my insert out of my MISTI, and I always keep it taped into place, but this is how I like to stamp red clings. I like to put the cling itself into the MISTI, right? Press that down. And then I'll take a piece of cardstock, lay it over the stamp, and I'll tape it down. Now I have a bigger piece that I'm going to need, but sometimes I just like to have a little extra cardstock that I can hold on to, or that I can, stamp off on, whatever the case may be. I like big cardstock. I'm going to powder this up, and I'm going to ink with the Nocturne, but then sprinkle the clear embossing powder over it, so that I can get sort of a shiny black little creepy crawler. I guess they are spiders, aren't they? Yeah, they're spiders. But I'm doing it this way because I'm going to do an emboss resist. But normally I do emboss resist with, like white powder or clear powder. And there's no ink below it, right? But here I want to preserve that black ink because I'm going to ink blend over the top. So I'm just pressing it down, right? Pressing that right into the ink on the stamp. I'll ink it up a second time just to get a really great coating. And of course, the beauty of having the paper taped to your door is it doesn't shift, so you can stamp directly in the same place. Now, while this ink is still tacky, because the Nocturne doesn't dry instantly, right? It's got a little bit of, I think it's got a little oil in the formula, but whatever the case, powder will stick to it. So you can see that now it looks a little chalky, right? Looks a little pale. And what I'll do, once I've tapped off all the excess powder, is bring my heat tool and start melting. And you can see how the black returns, but it's not just black, it's shiny and has some beautiful texture to it because of the embossing powder. I like to do this on my board too, because on a big piece, it's not going to hurt my mat, and it helps me to melt the powder. So now for some ink blending. I pulled out my little waffle flower mat, which I always kind of forget about. It was hidden in my craft/dining room. But what I do like to have is my little Positively Everything tool just to hold my pad in place while I load it up, especially if I'm holding something else with, my left hand. But here we go. We're going to ink blend a little pumice stone right in the center. I thought this would be a great color to start with, and actually it turned out better than I thought, if I'm being honest. I was kind of surprised, but stay with me here. All right, I'm going to wipe away the excess that pools on the embossed spiders, and now bring in Wilted Violet, working my way around just in a messy circle. And of course, I'm not going to use this whole piece, right? But I like to have a big old piece to play with because what if I decided to make 2 cards out of this? Or what if I decided just to crop a certain segment? I like to have as much to start with as possible, and that's why I've got the big old sheet of paper. Bringing the pumice stone back in here. Now here's the cool thing about oxides, if you don't know this already. They have a level of opacity to them, so you can layer them over the top of each other, and they're not see-through, right? They've got just a bit more opacity, so it's kind of cool to go back into any area with a lighter color and keep blending. Now I'm coming in with the black soot and going all the way around. I started out a little tentative and I thought, ooh, it's not very dark. And then I just decided, Kath, you're just going to go all in with the black soot because what you're doing isn't spooky. There you go. Now you're spookifying the look, right? But going in nice and heavy with the black, and here's the cool thing. Again, those black spiders really do still show up because they're shiny and they have that deep black Nocturne ink stamped underneath. So coming back in with the Wilted Violet, and this is the part where I think it's really fun when you're doing any sort of ink blending with oxides. Just kind of keep going until you like it. And you can go back with the lighter colors and blend over the darker colors and just sort of create the look you are going for. And I'm wiping off, again, all of the excess, right, that pools on top of the slick surface. Coming back in, I really didn't know when to stop. It's so good. I love it. Next, I thought I'd take my fan brush and a little bit of water, right? Some clean water and just flick on some flicks. I love this brush. I love fan brushes for this because it gives you really nice flicks, little delicate ones or big splotchy ones. Just depends on how much water you have on there. But look at how cool that is. It kind of creates a textured, starry, maybe spooky background. It just adds to the overall look. And of course, the oxide water reaction. It's just magic. Isn't that fun? All right, we're going to let that dry and move on to some die cutting. I've got some Neenah Solar White Classic Crest in the 110 pound. I'm going to start out here cutting out a couple ghosts. I think their faces are so cute with the little cheek thing, and I didn't want to put anything behind the eyes. I think these are great just as standalones. They don't need much, but I am going to cut out a couple more off camera, and then I'll move on to the spooky tree. And I was really surprised at how cool this was when it cut out, because that just, what does that remind me of? That movie, not Edward Scissorhands, the skeleton, oh, you know what Nightmare Before Christmas. That's what that tree reminds me of. So I'm cutting a panel down, okay, because I want to have this panel be a little smaller. And as much as I loved it, I realized I cut off too much of the black, right? The black soot needs to come back. So, don't be afraid to get that ink back out once you trim something down. And part of the reason why I love to trim things down is I like more control over the crop. I always want to include a margin of space on my cards themselves, right? And I like to pop things up, so I needed to come back in with more black soot, but this was so easy to do. I brought in that paper towel just because I didn't want to get my fingerprints all over. Because oxides, they take a while to dry, and they will show your fingers if you're, putting your mitts all over. All right, blending that in. Again, wiping off the excess. And isn't that great? Just so much spookier by bringing in a little more of the black soot. I love it. Next, I'll take some spray adhesive, and I'm going to spray all of the spooky trees in a little box off camera so that I can line them up and stack for some dimension. I had to bring in my little Simon Says Stamp cling package backer because I could not see to do this on the black craft mat that I work on. But once I got that into place, I'm just like, that is spooky ooky. Thank you. I do think this is cute though. So there's my tree with some dimension. I'm going to put a brick on that. And I'm going to create this card on a black card base. So I'll score this at 5.5. It'll be a top folding US A2. So that's 4 1/4 wide by 5.5 tall. And this is Simon Says Stamp black cardstock. Taking the backers off here, and I'm just going to pop that onto the card base, and there's that framing margin space. Oh, whoop, come back here. It's trying to crawl away, get it? Now I wanted to sort of arrange and figure out what's the card actually going to look like? Because I was fully aware the background, it's taken some attention there, right? But I wasn't sure about this arrangement. And I thought to myself, okay, big ghost, probably good, but I wanted the tree to come up a little higher because it just was too short for the space. And that's when I realized I think this needs some kind of a grounding, right? Something to kind of just give it legs to stand on. So I grabbed my stitched Hillside borders, one of the oldest dies, one of the first things I ever bought when I started card making. And I'm going to cut out of the scrap, right, the same width of the blended base, and then create a hill. And that was exactly what was missing, right? It just needed that hill. As soon as you get the hill, we've got something to ground the tree, and it was just such an easy fix. So I'm popping it up, putting a little liquid glue so that I can just kind of wiggle it right into place so it's perfectly lined up. But of course, because I cut it out with the die, it fits in there like a puzzle piece. But I did have a little too much foam tape popping out, and anything white is going to show up, right? So I do have some black foam squares. I just never use them. I should get them out for Halloween. I'm going to put some liquid adhesive here on the back and just line my tree up, right? It's got that dimension. Oh, wiggle it into place. Love it. And then I'm going to put a brick on it and just let that liquid glue adhere. I've got some foam squares on my ghost, and these are the regular foam squares, so he's popping up with some nice clearance. This little guy, he's got thin foam squares, so it's a little less dimension than the big ghost. And then I was thinking, third ghost, I think I'm just going to glue that one right down, but I wanted to kind of play with my greeting first. I have a little greeting from a card that I did recently, and I'll pop a card up right in the upper corner that I decided not to use, and on this one, I thought it was perfect. So, don't know why I grabbed the wrong Copic marker. Usually I use a T10, but I don't think I had my glasses on. But I colored the sides just so that it looks like it's printed on black, because the sentiment strips are actually printed on white, because we want to create this reverse look, right, where the type looks white, but it's not. It's the black ink that makes it all show up, but the sides are white. So wiggle that into place with a little Derice strip, pop it up, make sure it's straight, and that is the finished card. When it was done, I was so happy. I even have a little mucky muck on the left from where powder kind of stuck, but I think this is spooky and awesome. All of the supplies can be found linked below. I hope you enjoy this project, and I'll see you back here with another card project soon. Thanks so much for watching today. I would love to have you become a subscriber to my YouTube channel. And if you do subscribe, be sure to hit the gray bell below the video so that you don't miss the next time I post. Here are a couple other videos that you might be interested in watching. Thanks so much and have a great day.